Welcome to Quantum Revenue Expansion, where we share time-tested strategies to turn your annual revenue into your monthly revenue. Ready to up-level your business and your life? Then you will love listening in on the lively conversations Ursula has with her clients and guests as they share exactly what they did to grow and scale their business exponentially. Plus, you will discover how to experience more freedom, joy, and peace in your business and your life right now. If turning your annual income into your monthly income is your next step, then join us at the next 2X Intensive. Go to ursulainc.co/apply.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Quantum Revenue Expansion, the podcast where we talk about how to turn your annual income into your monthly income. Jen, hello, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you because we're going to have a cool conversation for our listeners all over the world. We're going to talk about how to have health and wealth in 2023 and why that matters. So definitely grab a pen, piece of paper. You're going to want to take some notes today when Jen and I have this fun conversation.
Yeah.
And also, if you haven't yet, definitely go to ursulainc.co and grab Quantum Revenue Expansion, the masterclass. It's a free course. You can download it, super easy, and it pairs really well with the podcast. So if you haven't done that yet, definitely do that. In that course, we talk about three things. One, how to create your brand new quantum revenue container for next year, how to up-level your pricing, packages, and your marketing. And we talk about how to collapse time and reach your quantum revenue goals even faster. So definitely grab that if you haven't yet. Also, if you haven't hung out with us at the 2X Intensive and you're feeling the pull, like you've heard the things and you're thinking, I want to 2X my revenue and shave 10 or more hours off my work week, you can go to ursulainc.co/apply, send us your details, and my team will set up a private call with someone on our team to talk to you about how the 2X can help you this year and next year. So with that, let's do this. Jen, let me tell you about Jen. Jen's passionate about helping women get rid of the lies they have been believing that have shaped unhealthy behaviors or unhealthy relationships with their bodies. Jen creates an atmosphere of healing so individuals can move forward and live their purpose of who they really are, who they were meant to be. And Jen is just a master at helping, especially women. You work mostly with women, but I know you have a lot of men in your life too, that I'm sure you've impacted, men that live in your home, and just helping people get healthy and get out of this negative conversation in their heads about eating and about food and about weight and all these things that we've been told that are just lies. So let's just dive in, Jen. I'm excited to have you here. And I can tell you, I think you and I've talked about this, but from a young age, like I can remember at a very young age looking in magazines and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be that skinny, or I'm never going to have this, or I'm never going to, and even someone in my family who, meant well at the time, saying something about, well, don't look in the mirror so much, it'll make you vain. And just like, I was like, well, I had so many mixed messages, like I think so many young women do in this country. Then, throw in social media today. I didn't have that when I was a kid in the 80s. I'm glad I didn't have social media because I can't even imagine what I would have been thinking then. So take it away. Tell us a little bit about your story and what brought you into this world.
Yeah. And from a very young age, I was a super skinny kid. And I remember the weight conversation happening all around me all the time. Oh, you'll never have to worry about being fat because you are just so tiny. Well, then I hit puberty and I got hips and I developed quicker than the other girls. And I remember feeling so uncomfortable in my body because I knew that I looked different. I knew I had developed sooner before the other girls. And I'll never forget, we were in 7th grade, we were in gym class, we were in the pool, and I was mortified to wear a swimsuit because I felt like everyone was looking at me. And then we went into math class afterwards and I heard a group of boys making fun of me for how I looked in my swimsuit. They were calling me fat. They were saying I had a big butt and big thighs. And that really shaped the lens of how I saw myself for the next, 30 plus years. And I don't think I ever had what you would diagnose as an eating disorder, but because I just jumped around from being super, super restrictive and trying to make myself small enough so I felt good enough to not caring anymore and just eating anything I wanted. And I just kind of jumped around to all the things, but always felt really, really disordered with food. And then I had babies, and your body's changed so much when you have babies. And that was the first time I probably felt like I was really actually overweight and struggled to lose the body weight. And then as soon as I did with the first kid, I got pregnant with the second kid. And then I jumped into health coaching and got really, really adamant about exactly what I was eating, to the point where that probably did become a little bit disordered. During that time, I got Lyme's disease a couple years after my youngest son was born, and that really disrupted my immune system. I had to get really restrictive on what I could eat because everything was causing more inflammation in my body. And I became completely obsessed with what was going in my body because I was so scared to go back to that state of chronic inflammation that became completely like an eating disorder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there are so many people, including myself, that can relate to this struggle. And not only that, but let's face it, the diet industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right?
Yes.
And they don't make money unless we're buying books or supplements or powdered shakes or, all the things. And at the same time, I heard one of the words you said about the inflammation that you had. And that's the other piece. I feel like we're so uneducated because when it comes to food and nutrition, because we'll see one person who seemingly can eat everything and just keep their weight, their metabolism is whatever, right? What it should be. And someone else who's totally restricting and not right. And so it's just so confusing. And by the way, for anyone this is triggering right now, I'm just sending you loads of love. I can feel like this might be very triggering. And at the same time, I wanted to have this conversation around the holidays because I feel like it's not something that's talked about. There's a lot of shame around eating disorders.
Absolutely.
Shame. And I think for women, especially, we're not allowed to talk about this. We're not supposed to talk about it. And yet if we don't talk about it, then it's everybody's secret. And I guarantee you that, I don't know what, 90, you probably know the stats better than me, but 90% of women or more struggle with this at some point.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it's even more than that. Yeah.
And so our intention is really to do a couple things. We're going to talk about Jen's business today because we want to talk about having a business that you're so passionate about and growing that. Multiple businesses actually in your family. And then also we're going to, at the end, we'll have more of this conversation about what you can do if this is, if you're feeling triggered about this conversation, how Jen can support you and some of the resources that are out there. So you became a health coach. So you were inspired to become a health coach because of the many struggles that you'd been through.
Yeah, I wanted a way to feel like I was in control of my health. I wanted a way to stay home with my kids. It was a network marketing company that I jumped into, and that brought me out of, my corporate job and brought me home. But then it was all consuming because I was teaching other people how to, be healthier, but it was I was still struggling because I was struggling with Lyme's disease. So I felt a little like a fraud. And it just became this place of total chaos for me and total struggle. And it didn't feel good. I didn't feel in alignment with what I was sharing because I was still struggling because I had never mended that relationship with food or even my body, really. I was still trying to become small enough to feel like I was good enough, that I belonged anywhere. Right?
Feel good enough. Yeah.
And I know so many women can relate to that because everywhere we look, we're told in some way, shape, and form that we're not good enough, whether it's social media or magazines that you were talking about. And now social media, it's there's a whole tribe of people that's sugar is bad and all this is bad. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you're bad because you're, being selfish or whatever the message is. And then there's another one that's eat whatever you want. It's okay. Don't be in a relationship with food. But then you see autoimmune disease and chronic illness and all of these things running rampant because people aren't fueling their body and nourishing their body in the proper way. And so I feel like people just go to both extremes.
Totally.
And there's no middle ground where it's easy and allows it to just flow on social media right now. I just feel like people are just told in every way, shape, and form that they're wrong or bad.
Totally. Yeah. It's so confusing. I try not to go on there because I start to feel really dumb after a while. Clearly I know nothing. So what was the breakthrough moment for you, as your business continued to evolve where you were like, you know what, this is the message that I want to shout from the mountaintops. And then you had this around food and health.
Yeah, there was a couple of moments. I got tired of seeing everyone's before and afters all the time. The same person would share their before and after 6 times a year because they wanted to show the world that they'd finally figured it out, and then they'd fall off, and they'd show the world that they'd finally figured it out, and they'd fall off. And I was still deep in my struggle. And I remember I was at a girlfriend's house, and we were actually on vacation, and we were getting ready to go out with our husbands, and we were super excited because our kids were little. Mm-hmm. And we were trying on different clothes. Sometimes when you're getting to go out on a night in the town. And I made a comment about my body, and bless her heart, this friend, it's so good to have friends that will speak truth into your life. And she said to me, we don't speak that way about our bodies in this house.
Wow.
And it completely stopped me. Right. And then a few minutes later, we had kind of changed rooms, and she apologized to me, and she said, my daughter was in the room, and I'm really trying to break the cycle. And it had never even occurred to me that her daughter was in the room. I was so used to just criticizing my body, hating on my body, cursing what I didn't like. And it really changed the way I started to show up. Right. And then, I mean, it didn't just all change in that moment though, but it stopped me. It was one of the first things. And then, undetermined amount of time later, it was within that same season, I was just praying about it. I was praying about, like, Lord, like, why does this still feel like a struggle? Like, I'm supposedly this health coach, I'm earning a really good amount of money, but I don't feel like in alignment, like in any area of my life. Like, why is this such a struggle? And he told me, like, until you start treating your body like the temple that I made it to be, I'm not going to give you breakthrough in this area. And that was so convicting for me, because I had been cursing everything I hated about my body. I had been trying to, fit into a smaller size to feel like I belonged, instead of just reminding myself that I was just created in the image of God. Mm-hmm. Right. And it was during that time that I came across this photo. And I remember this photo so well, because it was taken during that same season of when I was in 7th grade, and those boys had been making fun of me and calling me fat. And I played volleyball at that time. And I don't know if you know anything about volleyball uniforms, but you have to wear
shorts.
Yes, like those tiny little bun huggers. Yeah. And so your thighs are hanging out. And I hated every second of it. And I actually ended up quitting that season when we had a home tournament, because I knew those same boys would be at that tournament, and I didn't want to be made fun of. So anyway, I came across this photo during the season. I have no idea why I still had this photo. And I saw this picture of myself. And when that photo was taken, I remember feeling like I was massive. I remember feeling like I was so big. I was so overweight. And I looked at that photo, and I was tiny. And so I realized, like, how skewed my perception of myself had been all these years, because I had just been looking through that lens and believing that lie that I was fat, I was huge, I had huge thighs, I had a big butt, or whatever it was. And it wasn't true. Right. But I had been looking through that lens. And so the Lord just started me on this journey of just changing pretty much everything and inviting him into every area of it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that. It is amazing when we look back at photos when we had certain judgments. And I'll say this too, like, I know that men suffer with this too. I've had conversations with my husband. He was very skinny when he was young. And for guys, no man wants to be very skinny. And as women, we're like, oh, you gotta, like, we think, oh, that's a high metabolism, or we make up a story about that. And he's like, it was awful. Like, he was 130 pounds forever, couldn't gain weight, got made fun of. That's why he ended up in boxing. And then he did gain weight. And that's a whole other story for him. But I share that because he has shared with me, like, it's not just women who suffer with this. It's, so I just want to point that out for our guy listeners as well. Like, the whole thing about, the one thing that really annoys my husband, and I'm going to put this out there because I'm guessing he's not alone, is the whole dad bod thing, like that like people celebrate that. And he's like, it's kind of unhealthy, right? Like, people say you're lucky to have a dad or whatever, or that's revered. And it just, like, on all sides of the male, female world, this is happening. So,
I can't believe how many men struggle with it. So many men have come forward to me since then and said, like, hey, do you have programs for men? And at the beginning I didn't, because I didn't think there was a market for it, but I'm realizing now that there are. So there are some things coming.
Good. Oh, good. Excellent. Good. So, okay. I want to talk about the business, and then we'll shift gears. So the money was coming in, you had this breakthrough where you had a conversation with God, and God's like, hey, like, I want you to take care of this beautiful temple. And until you do that,
Yeah.
breakthrough. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
The Lord just started calling me out of network marketing. I'm still with that company. I still love that company. I just don't actively build anymore because I didn't feel like that's where the Lord wanted me.
Sure.
And so I just started writing down the changes that I was making. It started from this place of curiosity. Like, if I wanted to have a healthy relationship with my body, what would that look like? What would I talk to my body like? What would that look like? And at the same time, I joined a ministry school that became just instrumental in my life in teaching me about the spiritual aspect of all of this and how, when we are cursing our bodies, we're actually, like, the power of life and death is in the tongue, right? So when we are cursing our bodies, we're actually like moving towards death from a spiritual standpoint instead of moving towards life. And so I started implementing all of the tools that I was learning in that ministry school, and this business started to take shape, right? Like coaching women. I've been coaching them for years on how to get healthy, but we had missed that whole aspect of, why have you created habits that aren't supporting the lifestyle in the body that you want? And that is what I concentrate now on the most. There's 10 million health coaches out there. Not a lot of them are getting to the core reason of why you've created these habits that have created a life or a body or a health that you don't want. And that's where all of my focus is.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that too. Some of the key things that you teach your clients
Yeah.
before we wrap up today. So were there any, I mean, this is not your only business. Like, you've been an entrepreneur, you and your husband.
Yep.
As you've gone through this entrepreneurial journey with a family, right? That's no, easy feat.
It's not, no.
What are some of the limiting beliefs that you have had to give up along the way or release to be able to grow businesses and stay in this entrepreneurial world?
Yeah, I think the myth of balance. And I don't mean that you can't have any balance, but I think there's this utopian idea of that it will always be in balance and it will never feel chaotic when you're working for yourself or working from home or network marketing or trying to raise kids. And so letting go of what I thought it had to look like was really important. Worthiness was a big thing for me. Like, when you've spent a lifetime believing that you're not worthy of, whatever it is, a certain size, a certain belonging, a certain amount of money, all of that, I've had to do a lot of work around that for sure. And just wanting, like, what I wanted my family to look like when I left my corporate job and did network marketing. I was working more, right?
Right.
And because I realized I was getting significance from the wrong place. And I didn't leave my job to work more. And so that was also a big backpedal I had to make at some point. And then you have outside voices telling you, well, you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. But like, my first role is always going to be in my home.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's such a great point of, like, that there's not chaos. Of course, I would say this: business is messy.
Yes.
But I like to close the doors on my office and leave my messy desk behind and go live my life.
That's so
like,
good.
The day is done. It's just done. I close my doors. It's like I let that go because I know my business has its own energy, and you have a team and you have systems and processes, and the business wants to run itself. And so it's like that, like, as you are growing your businesses, that's what you're truly doing, right? So that
Right.
can have more of the freedom that you wanted to. But also, we are parents who have kids in sports. We were just talking about that. For all the parents who have kids in lots of activities, not just sports, but like there's 4-H, there's church, there's a million cool activities, and
Yes.
it is a juggle. So lots of love to all of you. And I see parents at some of the sporting events, most of them, like, they're on their phone. One had a laptop the other night and he was just like, getting his work done during practice. So we figure it out. But I think you made a really good point of, like, knowing where your priorities are is critical, because the rest falls into place.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about, where do I want to take this? We talked about the limiting beliefs, but were there any myths about money or revenue coming through the business into your family, or just any myths about money that you've let go of over the years?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first one that I had to let go of is when business is going well, bad things happen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I've had that one come up a number of times until I really like faced it. It was kind of like in the background, sneaky, right? Because I did really well and I got a really good job out of college and was doing really well. And then I was just totally miserable. And then I left it to do network marketing. And then I got super sick with Lyme's disease. And there's just this, my dad passed away. Like there's just been a number of things that have happened that have compounded that belief, but I've really faced it this year. I've really faced it head on and just like, you don't get space here anymore.
Yeah. 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 That's phenomenal. And I think for all of our listeners, people can relate to, whether it's that a belief like that or something similar of doing the work around it to let it go, face it, let it go so that you can make that shift. All right. Speaking of shifting, I want to shift gears to make sure we talk about these tips. A couple of things. Number one, you have a book out. So let's talk about that really quickly. Tell us about the book. What inspired you to write it?
Yeah. So this book has been such a labor of love, and I've been in the process of writing another book for like a year and a half. And that one's just been a lot tougher. And the Lord was like, why aren't you writing a book on this? And I sat down and I spent like 2 weeks and it just came out. So the Lord was on it. Like it just flowed. And that feels so good when you're creating anything. But what I wanted is I teach these classes on body image revival. I start challenging the way women are speaking to themselves, the lies that they're believing. And so I would teach this great class, and I had a coaching program that I offered, but not everybody was ready for that. So I needed something to bridge that gap. I needed a resource that people could take with them to start changing that language, to start that everyday walk of, okay, what am I doing today that's just taking me towards having a healthier relationship with my body or farther away from having a healthy relationship with my body? Because as you know, anytime you're challenging a big belief like that, it's not just like, I decided today, like,
Right.
and then it's easy from there. That is an important part of the equation, but it has to be like a daily walk that you're challenging those beliefs. So that's really where this was born out of, is what questions are you asking yourself? Where are you sabotaging yourself or believing a lie that you don't even know that you're doing? And what can be true instead?
Yeah. I love it. Congratulations, by the way, because writing a book is such a labor of love and it's a journey.
It really is.
It's been an amazingly successful journey. And we're just excited to have you in our community so we can walk this journey with you as it unfolds and as
Thank you. Thank you.
And so I don't know if you and I talked about this when I was on your podcast, but I read a story and it has just stuck with me. It makes me think of you and the work that you do. I think I talked about this, but there's a woman who'd been diagnosed with ALS. Did we talk about this?
Yeah, we did. I don't think we talked about it on the podcast though, but we've talked about it since.
Yeah. And this woman, so for most people, a diagnosis of ALS, and this was from Pam Grout, who I've had on the podcast. Pam Grout's a New York Times bestselling author. And so she had shared the story. So it's, I hate saying this out loud, but it's like a death sentence for.
It is. Yeah. It's a prison. Your body becomes a prison.
It's a horrible, disease. And so this woman, gets her diagnosis and just wakes up the next day. Like she's, obviously just feeling terrible, but she wakes up and she thinks, what do I want my legacy to be on my way out? And my sense was she was having a, conversation with God as well. This was a spiritual moment for her. And the message was, love your body. Just love your body. Yeah. And she thought, well, you know what? I might not be able to do a lot right now. I'm in a wheelchair already, but I can love my body. So every day she sat in her wheelchair naked and sat in front of the mirror and said, looked at herself and said, I love this about my body. Found told all the pieces of her body how much she loved it. Yeah. And she recovered, full recovery. Yep. And that just gives me goosebumps. And the second I read that, I think I forwarded it to you, but anyway, we talked about it, and it has, I think about that all the time for myself. And it's something that you talk about all the time, about falling in love with your body. So tell us just how that story, why that story makes so much sense to you. And then what is some of the work? What are some of the tips and things that you have for us that you do with your clients? Yeah. So it makes perfect sense to me. I see miracles like that all the time, because anything that we're doing, any choice that we're making, we're really choosing to move towards life, or we're choosing to move towards death. And the thoughts that we think and the words that we speak,
we hear it in all different ways, like thoughts become things. And, if you think it, you can be it. All those things, they're true. They're absolutely true. And like, what are you aligning with? Right. And I know that's speaking your language so much. So the whole point of the book was like, until you're aware of a lie, you don't even realize that you're speaking it or what's causing that vicious cycle. I have one client, is one of my favorite stories to tell. And I have her permission to share this, but I'll keep her name out of it. But when she was 12 years old, she was weighed in front of a classroom. It was back in those days when they weighed all the kids. Yes. And in front of the classroom, the nurse told her that she was super fat and she was going to spend the rest of her life like that if she didn't do something about it. Wow. So not only was that super embarrassing, her mom then kept her on a super restrictive diet for like the whole rest of the time that she was in her home. She was, shamed and punished every time she would eat something that wasn't on her diet. And so of course it just created this awful relationship with food. She would hide food. She would sneak food because she was starving. She wasn't getting enough food. Her body wasn't being nourished. And it created this vicious starving and binge cycle for like 40 plus years. And so we healed that moment. We did some forgiveness work around that moment. And then she has been able to create like this relationship with food where she doesn't have all these only good foods or only bad foods, but just foods that are nourishing in that moment. Right. And it's just created this whole other relationship. And so this whole area of her brain that was just consumed with being obsessed with food all the time, because if you've struggled with this, it just totally consumes your thoughts. Right.
Yeah.
And it's created this whole freedom in every area of her life.
Wow.
Because she doesn't have to be obsessed with that anymore.
Wow. So beautiful. I think that's the piece that people want. They want the freedom from the conversation in their head of what to eat, what not to eat, how to exercise, how not to exercise, what not to think about, what to think about,
Right.
And then all the health stuff. Like, it's just crazy talk. And one of the reasons, there's two reasons I wanted to have you on. You are the last show of 2022, which is a big, awesome. Right before the holiday season, really. right before beautiful Christmas and Kwanzaa, and we'll be in the middle of Hanukkah, and then the New Year will be ushered in, all these celebrations where there's going to be lots of food, and then New Year's resolutions for January, right, where people are just going to be super stressed about that, beating themselves up. So
yes.
Of course we want to celebrate your book. We're celebrating your book and getting this out to the world on so many levels. And we'll talk about that at the end, how you can get a copy of Jen's book. And then at the same time, as people navigate, like they're listening to this, as they navigate the holidays and they navigate January and the pressure of New Year's resolutions, what's your best advice, or what do you want them to know or think about?
Yeah. So the question I often have my clients just ask themselves during the day, like, what can I do to nourish my body today? That's the question you're going to start the day with. And if you're faced with a choice, sometimes we're at parties or different social events, like, what can I do to just nourish my body right now, so I don't leave feeling like I'm starving and I totally missed out and I was consumed with thoughts of hunger the whole time I was here, or I choose to binge and eat everything because I let every single thing I've ever learned go for the night and I leave feeling awful. And those are the two that people usually choose if they struggle with this, right? So just asking yourself in that moment, like, what can I do to nourish myself in this moment? What can I do to nourish myself today? How can I choose to nourish myself today? And just taking it one decision at a time versus this whole sweeping declaration of, I'm never eating sugar again. I'm never eating so-and-so again, and thinking that's going to fix all your problems. And I'm not saying that those things are bad, because those certainly have a place. I choose not to consume very much sugar because my body doesn't do well with sugar. But the sweeping declarations, we're going to change every single thing and have all these rules, is what causes it to feel like a prison.
Yeah, right. And causes people to then, rebel when they're having a moment of stress or whatever. Yeah. So let's get some examples. I know our listeners love real world. Like what are some things that I could do to nourish my body? I mean, I'm guessing there's food options, but I'm guessing it's more than that as well.
Yeah. So what I usually do is when I am sitting with my clients, and a lot of the work is around the emotional stuff, but then we also do like, let's look at food for a minute, right? Because everybody's going to have food choices that make them feel really, really good, and some that are going to make them feel really, really bad. So for example, when I ask myself the question, like, what can I do to nourish my body today? Like, what does that look like? I'll make a list of 8 to 10 foods, and those are just kind of my go-to foods, right?
Mm.
And one of the most freeing things ever for me was I just realized, like, I hate broccoli. Like, I hate it. And when I was in those modes where I was like, I'm going to do everything perfectly, right? Before I had kind of navigated this walk, I would make myself eat broccoli, and I hated every second of it.
Yeah.
And so for me, broccoli, even though it's good for me, it's not nourishing me because it feels icky.
Sure.
Does that make sense? So like
Totally,
finding those foods that make you feel good about yourself. Like, I love spinach. I love mixed greens. I love anything like that. So those are my nourishing foods. And that feels so much better than I have to eat broccoli because this list says it's good for me.
Yeah.
And broccoli is good for you. For anyone's body, but it didn't make me feel good.
Right.
So finding those foods that make you feel nourished, and whether it's a list of 8 to 10 or, 12 to 14 is really, really good.
Well, and maybe your body really doesn't like broccoli. Maybe
it's possible. Yeah.
Body chemistry or something. I think you got to listen to your body. One thing I love is bananas, and everyone would say so much sugar in your bananas. The more research I did, it's like, no, that's dumb. Bananas are so good for you. They're so nourishing for me. I love bananas. Luca eats like 75 of those a day, I think.
Yeah. So does my youngest son. That's so interesting because they're so like,
they know, they're in tune.
Yes. And that's also one of my pet peeves is when people tell you that you can't eat fruit because there's sugar in fruit. And it's like, fructose is a natural sugar and is good for your body. Yes. There's a big difference between fructose and high fructose corn syrup. And I don't think people understand that there's a big difference. High fructose corn syrup is a metabolic disruptor that does throw your body chemistry off. So if you're going to eliminate a food because you want to feel better, that would be a great one to eliminate. So
beautiful. Awesome. Yeah. Anything else? Like, what about like taking a warm bath or going for a walk? Like, what are other ways that you tell your clients to nourish their bodies?
Yeah. Any type of movement is good. And I don't have any rules around movement. I say movement is good. I love to walk. For years, I was in the military for years and I had to run and I hated every second of it, but I love to just walk. I love to pray while I walk, spend time in nature while I walk, slow my brain down while I walk. And that feels really nourishing and good to me. So finding the things that feel good to you. I also love Pilates. Like, for years, I was like a high impact athlete and I thought that that's what workouts had to look like. And now that I'm in my 40s, like, I love mindful movement. So I love Pilates. I love walking. I love an intense stretching routine because flexibility is really important as you get older. And so moving your body in a way that it makes you feel good instead of the way somebody makes you feel like you're supposed to.
I want to make sure everyone's hearing this, because this, I think, is the core of our talk today, is really listening to your body and, and not all the noise. Like, what is your body asking for? Yeah. What tastes good to you? What nourishes you? Yes. And really, like, what exercise? I'm with you. Like, I went to one HIT class and I was like, this is just not me.
Right. Right.
And I don't feel good when I do it, and I don't feel strong when I do it, and it's not fun. Other people love it. So you've got, like, do what you feel called to do. Right.
And I still like to lift weights, but I don't make that the core of my workout anymore. Like, I don't make that the epitome. And yeah, there's lots of things on social media that tell me that women absolutely have to lift weights. And you just have, like you said, you nailed it. Like, eliminate the noise and tune into yourself and what feels good to you and what feels nourishing to you in that moment. So
beautiful. Okay. As we're wrapping up, before you tell us about all the things, your best advice, what's your best advice for New Year's resolutions? I have an opinion about this, but I'm not going to say it, but I want to know, like, around health, like, people, this is what we're going to be hearing about for the next couple of weeks. And I know at my gym, like, membership surges for like 2 weeks and then it goes back to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just have such a hard time with the sweeping declarations. I'm going to work out every day. Like, and I get it that some people do great on things like 75 hard, and that fuels some people's ambition. They like the structure. They like the challenge. most of the people that I work with, that actually is a trigger to send them into another horrible binge cycle or horrible cycle where they're not taking care of themselves at all, because they try to do the absolute highest thing that they can, and then they fall off, and then they don't do anything. So my take on New Year's resolutions is, why not pick one that like nourishes your body? What if your whole goal for the month of January is to take a walk every day or to move your body in some way? What if you just did one thing that moved your body towards the version that you want to feel whole and healthy versus skinny and look a certain way in a certain outfit? Because that's where most people set their goals on, is like, I want to look this, I want to fit into these jeans again, or I want to look this way on this event. Like, what if you just did one thing every day in January that nourished your body? Whether it's drinking water, moving your body, eliminating metabolic disruptors. And I can give you a list of those. Those are things that just mess with all our whole body chemistry, even our brain chemistry. So
yeah, give us a few of those, and then we'll do the free gift and things.
Yeah, high fructose corn syrup is for sure one of the biggest contenders out there. That's not nourishing you in any way, shape, or form. Now, does that mean that I never steal a piece of my kids' Halloween candy? I absolutely not. Like, I don't have rules around that, but I know I don't feel good when I do eat it. So maybe a piece or two here or there, and then that's enough for me, right? Wow. Other metabolic disruptors are anything that's overly processed. So anything that's coming in a package that, it's like, or it can sit on a shelf for 6 months, that's probably got some chemicals in it that are not going to nourish your immune system and your digestive system as a whole. So that's a really good way to look at it, is instead of me giving you, memorizing a list of 50 things that's metabolic disruptors, if it's in a package or it can sit on a shelf for a really long time, it probably isn't nourishing your body.
Yeah, those are two excellent tips. And again, not to be obsessive about
right.
Candy, have a piece of candy, but the high fructose corn syrup, we all know that it's not going to make us feel good.
Right.
And second, that was a great point of just we know this too. We just don't always follow it, right? The processed foods, even today, like the thing that's tricky is there's so many what we think are health foods that are processed, and they might be really messing with your metabolism. Maybe the best gift you give yourself for the holiday season is a really good Ninja blender. Get it at Kohl's on sale. I got a new one recently. I was so excited. I heard NutriBullet. You can get those for like $20, right? And just start to make some amazing smoothies, because they're, you can put, I just love shoving greens in, and I'm on putting dates in right now, bananas, because I love them and they feel nourished.
Yeah.
Really good. Delicious shake. And we do those in our family. I got a juicer too. I got the NutriBullet juicer. Amazing. So like those two things, Jen, I was thinking about
exactly. Exactly what makes it feel easy, right? Like I have had a protein shake for the last 10 years for breakfast, and so does everyone in my family, but I love it. And it makes me feel good. And I know it's a perfect like macronutrient like profile. So I know I'm going to feel good after I have it. And then sometimes I add spinach and sometimes I don't. So whatever feels easy and it feels good and nourishing.
Beautiful. All right. Well, it's time to wrap up. We could talk all day.
We totally could.
Thank you. I think we covered a lot of great information for our listeners to combine health and wealth. Let's make a lot of money, but let's have good health and feel great about our bodies next year. So
absolutely.
What do you have for our listeners?
Yeah. So with my launch of my book, so the book is called Bless Your Body. It's really about changing the relationship and the language that you use to communicate with your body. We uncover some lies that we've maybe been believing and just kind of clear out those old wounds or old thought patterns or whatever it is that's shaping behavior. So it's just it's a devotion. It's a 40-day devotion that just allows you to just open up how you've been communicating with your body. And along with that, I'm having a challenge that goes right alongside with it. So that is launching January 23rd. And it's really my version of what a New Year's resolution should look like. Like instead of like sweeping declarations, I'm never eating sugar again, I'm going to the gym every day, I'm going to do 75 hard again. Those are not bad things. I'm speaking to the people that totally disempowers you. Yeah. That makes you feel like I am never going to be able to conquer this. I'm never going to get breakthrough in this area of my life. It's just not true. You just need the right person to guide you alongside. So with the purchase of the book, it's free challenge. I can't wait to just see all the lives that are changed within it. Like I know that the Lord is moving within that because I have seen so many lives change. My own life has been changed. And I just want to bless more people. I just want more people to have freedom in this area. The amount of freedom I've seen in some of my clients when they get rid of some of the lies that they've believed and they feel like, it's so freeing to have all those food rules off.
So step one, go to Amazon, buy Bless Your Body.
Yes.
And then how do I register for the free challenge? We'll have all of this in the show notes, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah. So I have a web page where you just enter your receipt number for buying the book and you get into the free challenge. We're going to do most of it right in a Facebook group, but you can also sign up for the emails. It's all the same content, just how you want to receive it. And we're just going to build community and just, break through and get freedom in more areas of our life. So it's going to be amazing.
Awesome. Jen, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And for our listeners, grab a copy of her book, Bless Your Body, and then come back and get into this challenge. It's a 30-day challenge.
It's a 40-day challenge.
Oh, right. I knew that. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's okay.
40-day challenge to make, instead of New Year's resolutions, do the 40-day challenge.
Yes.
And really up-level your health and your wealth. So Jen, thanks again for sharing your wisdom and your blessing.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, back at you. So much fun. We could talk all day. So
we totally could.
And to our listeners all over the world, we love you. Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you like the show, definitely please leave us a review wherever you listen. We'd really appreciate that. And with that, we'll see you soon. Make this last month of the year your most epic month yet. See you in 2023. Bye, guys.
Thank you for joining us today. And if you are ready to make your next quantum leap, let's do it. Ursula invites you to join us at the 2X Intensive. Go to salescoachnow.com/apply. Don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast app.